I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting from the Wild and Scenic Film Fest. It's the largest environmental film fest of its kind. We're based in downtown Nevada City in Grass Valley, California, which is pretty much at the base of the Sierras. And it's always a gift to connect with extraordinary people who are making a difference in the world and for our world. I'm excited here to have Bobby and Maura, a couple. Their film is called The Arrowhead Traverse. And, you know, part of Wild and Scenic Films, in addition to showcasing like dire issues we might be experiencing, it's also around the adventure and how the adventures we take can often be integrated into the wild world, which is what you guys did with, at the time, the film's about going on this adventure in canoe and a bike with your baby and a toddler, which is a big feat to take on. So what was it about that in the first place where you thought, we need to go out and do this together as a family unit?
Yeah, well, we try to take a big family trip every year, if not two. And our daughter had been born in October, and Bobby is very lucky, and he gets 6 weeks of
paternity leave.
I couldn't think of what it was called. And with that, he said, okay, I'm going to take 3 weeks after she's born, and then I'm going to take 3 weeks at a later date, and we can do a big epic trip. After Rowan was born, I struggled a lot with postpartum mental illness, and it was a really, really hard time for me. And so I was really mad at him that he wouldn't just take his full 6 weeks right away. But then planning this trip and actually, doing all the logistics behind it of packing and planning and preparing and training for it actually got me on a really good path to getting healthy mentally. And so it was kind of a great way to remind myself that I have 2 kids. It's really overwhelming. Life is really, really hard right now. I had a baby that wouldn't nurse. I had a crazy toddler running around. But we still have that ability to get outside with our kids and to be together as a family and to experience that really strong bond together. And so for me, it was a really powerful thing in a lot of ways. But that's kind of how the journey started.
How it started. And it's true, when you are outside in the wild world, there is, they talk about forest bathing, for example. We had one of the filmmakers here last year talk about that. There's something very healing about it for our serotonins, our overall health and wellness. So it was really smart to think, if we do this, get outside, probably shifted a lot for you.
Well, yeah, and I had lost all confidence in myself as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a person, a sister, a friend. I mean, just everything. I just didn't think that I was worth it, and so this journey of preparing for this was a really strong thing for me, because it was like, I was at the beginning, I was afraid to be alone with my 2 kids. Like, I didn't think I could do it. But then 9 months later, to go on this journey and to spend 3 weeks in the woods with our 2 kids. And we did have help along the way. It wasn't just us.
Yeah, I saw there was grandparents in the mix. Great way to bring in the grandparents. But sharing the story, by the way, Maura, is really important for other women to hear. Because it's often the stories that are not talked about.
Right.
And so... And so it's important to talk about that and know that it can happen to anybody, any new parent.
Yeah, and I try to be really open about it, because I don't want women to think that it's a taboo subject. I want women to come up and talk to me about it. We had discussed making the film about that, but in the end it took this direction instead that it took.
Right.
But yeah, it was... For me, this was a huge part of my path to healing, and I'm still on that path, and I think I will be for a really long time, even though my daughter is 2 now. But yeah, I think, the community came together in such an amazing way to help us on this journey. We actually had to turn volunteers away to help us.
You did.
So many people wanted to come with on different portions, to do resupplies with us, all sorts of things. So knowing that we had that support for this kind of harebrained idea that we had hatched of traveling 170 miles across Minnesota was a really special thing, and it reminded me of all the love and support I had throughout my life.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And Bobby, tell us a little bit about how you went that. How many hundred?
The goal was 170 miles.
170 miles. Yeah. So what was that process? You guys were canoeing?
It was interesting when we first started planning this trip, because we knew we had this 3 weeks to use. And we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do, because Jack, our son, really likes biking, and he really likes canoeing, and he really likes hiking. And so we were like, how can we do a hiking trip for 3 weeks? And we were looking at a map, trying to find a good trip we could do start to finish in that time. And we kind of started to string together, there's a bike path here, and that bike path will take us to the Boundary Waters where we can canoe across them, and that'll lead to this great backpacking route across the Canadian border. And so just the whole route kind of came together.
And did
on
people
our-
meet up with you then at different parts to bring the supplies, like the canoe and so forth?
Yeah, so on
Okay.
the biking portion, we had our filmmakers who were with us, and so they would shuttle the car throughout the day. They weren't able to come along, like on their bikes with
Right.
us, so that we shot a lot with our GoPros. But at the end of each day, they'd get our car to where we needed it to be, so then we could go back to the campsite and get some rest. For the backpacking, for the canoe section, since we were going point to point, it was like a 5-hour drive to get around because you have to drive around the whole wilderness area. So we had a rest day, and then our filmmakers and my dad shuttled the car
Met up.
for us.
Okay.
And then for backpacking, with all the diapers and all the food we needed.
Oh my God, so
and
many
carrying
diapers.
the
We would
kids,
need
yeah.
so many diapers.
We had planned for every 2 days having a resupply. So
Right,
that
and
the weight
just
would be
even the
manageable.
waste too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, being able to
Yeah.
carry that out. So what was the most challenging part of this trip for the two of you?
I would say diapers was a large challenge. Just our son was not potty trained at the time, so we actually had 2 of them in diapers, which was difficult. Our daughter, as I mentioned, wouldn't breastfeed, so she was taking formula. So just the logistics of how do we bring formula into the woods? How do we keep bottles sanitary? Talking to our pediatrician about what water is safe for her, what water, do we need to double filter? Do we need to boil? Like, what do we all need to do to keep her healthy and safe while in the backcountry? So I think for us, a lot of the logistics of, we've got great shots of me packing diapers. I think we packed like
Right.
120 diapers or something ridiculous. And I used like 4, big tubs of formula that I had to pre-package so that we wouldn't
It's a
get it
lot
all
of
gross.
preparation.
A lot of prep,
Yeah.
And how does how did this shift your relationship with each other, and then also just as a family unit?
You or me?
Go for it.
Bobby and I have always had a really close relationship, and part of that has always been the woods. And when Jack was first born and our relationship, you add in this whole other human being to your relationship, and a lot of people say that first year is really critical of, it's kind of a make it or break it. And so we would hike, and during those hikes, Jack would sleep. And while he slept, we talked. And we talked about the scary things. We talked about how we didn't know if we were going to be good parents. We talked about how scary, it was, or how frustrated I would get, or whatever it was. And those conversations have continued for us in the wilderness, because when you're in the wilderness or even in the woods or just on a hike, you bond with people that you're with in a way that is not possible.
I love to do walking meetings with
Yeah,
people.
Yeah.
because you just talk. The conversation flows.
You have to be present. There's no distractions.
That's true. And then how
Yeah.
about as a family?
Our kids are really great. And I don't know, what do you think about as the family?
We go camping a lot. So,
You do?
Yeah.
So it was, people keep asking like, how'd you do this big thing? And we worked our way up to it. We did, 4 or 5 days in the Boundary Waters before. So this was more linking all those things together.
Preparation to it.
Yeah, for them it's more of like, oh, here we go again. And our
Right,
kids are
right.
always asking, when are we going to go canoeing?
That's
When are we going to go
great.
camping? So
That's
for them
great.
it wasn't a big deal at all.
So last question is, what would you say then to other parents who are thinking about, could I ever do anything like that? Is it like, just thinking about getting their family, their kids out beyond their comfort zone?
And what I say to the parents is, you don't know till you try. And also, it's better. We are saying, as always, we'd rather go out and have to turn around and come back early. So, what we say is, having to turn around and come back isn't a failure, but failure is not trying. So you can plan for the best, but prepare for the worst, and just go with the flow and see. You'll be surprised what your kids are capable of. They'll blow you away.
Right.
And also add that we have a lot of people that are like, oh, I haven't taken my kids to the Boundary Waters yet because we're going to wait until they're 8. But for us, we didn't want to wait till they're 8 because, for one, we can't wait 8 years
We can't
to do
wait
that
8
again.
years.
Didn't wait 8 years.
And then
Right.
also, we just want it to be their normal. So it shouldn't. We don't want to take an 8-year-old out and have them be scared when they hear a wolf call.
Right.
Or to say, like, you can sleep in a tent. It's
yeah,
not scary.
it's
They
just
just know.
That's
What
great.
they've done their whole life.
The film is Traversing
The Arrowhead Traverse.
The Arrowhead Traverse. How
Yep.
did you come up with that title?
It's
The Arrowhead Traverse.
So northeastern Minnesota is known as the Arrowhead region because
okay.
Minnesota juts out over Lake Superior.
Okay.
And so the region is defined from the Mississippi River to Lake Superior, and our route roughly follows that.
Got it. The Arrowhead Traverse. Go catch it. Go see it. Maura and Bobby, it was so great to connect with both of you. Thanks so much for having the time, making the time to be here at Wild and Scenic. They're kid-free, by the way, so it's a hot, fun weekend for the two of them. It was great to have you guys. I know you need to get back to your film. It's going to scream. It's getting ready to scream. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
I'm Elisa Parker. It's the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. We'll be back with more stories.